Members have approved a 30-day humanitarian ceasefire for Syria. A resolution was passed in a unanimous vote at the UN Security Council headquarters in New York. RT's Caleb Maupin has more for us.
There has been a resolution agreed on by the 15-member body that leads the United Nations regarding the situation in eastern Ghouta. This is an enclave to the east of the Syrian capital of Damascus, and it's a place that's under the control of rebels and terrorists that are working to overthrow the Syrian government. Since 2013, it has been surrounded by government forces, and the fighting there has recently intensified. And we're hearing allegations against both sides about human life being taken, about civilians being killed. We're hearing accusations from the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which is based in the United Kingdom. They're saying that Syria, with the support of Russia, is hurting civilians and committing atrocities against civilians. We've also heard reports from the Russian Center for Reconciliation in Syria. They are pointing out that the area is essentially being used to shell civilians in Damascus. Furthermore, they're reporting that the terrorist groups in eastern Ghouta are working actively to prevent medical aid from getting to civilians, and they're using these civilians as human shields. The resolution was passed calling for a 30-day ceasefire. Now, after the unanimous vote, we then heard from various countries. We heard from Nikki Haley of the United States, and she said she doesn't believe the Syrian government will actually comply with the ceasefire.
It is critical that the Assad regime and its allies comply with our demand to stop the assault on eastern Ghouta and immediately allow food and medicine to reach everyone who needs it. All of us on this council must do our part to press the Assad regime as hard as we can to comply. We are deeply skeptical that the regime will comply, but we supported this resolution because we must demand nothing less.
Now, we also heard from the representative of the Russian Federation. Now, he addressed the Security Council, and he emphasized that the fight against terrorism is not affected by this resolution, that internationally delegated terrorist groups, groups like al-Nusra, ISIS, that the fight against them is not restricted by this resolution, and that fight will continue. He also had some concerns about how the fight against terrorism seemed to be serving some other goals.
The aim of battling terrorism can't become a cover for solving geopolitical problems of dubious legitimacy, and that is exactly what the U.S. is doing in Syria right now. We insist that the so-called coalition end its attempts at occupation as soon as possible. It would have, among other things, a clear humanitarian effect.
Nikki Haley, the representative of the United States, walked out before the Syrian representative could speak. Under UN rules, if a resolution pertains to you, all countries have the right to address the Security Council. The Syrian ambassador to the United Nations went on to point out that he said that the 30-day ceasefire should be implemented, and not just implemented in eastern Ghouta, but also in Afrin as well as in the Golan Heights.
This resolution must be implemented in all parts of Syria, including Afrin and including the territories controlled by the United States. Extremist groups will use this ceasefire to regroup, reorganize, and receive more military equipment and logistical support. You are trying to stop us from defeating terrorism in our own country. Our forces are not thousands of kilometers from home fighting against other countries. We are fighting terrorists in our own land.
The resolution has been passed, and it looks like there will be a 30-day ceasefire in eastern Ghouta.
Investigative journalist Rick Sterling told us the Russian amendments to the ceasefire will allow anti-terror operations to continue.
I think a key addition to the resolution was the inclusion of the fact that the Syrian government can continue the fight against al-Qaeda and ISIS in East Ghouta. And I think that was the reason that it did pass unanimously with the support of Russia and the encouragement of the Syrian government. The United States is kind of at a crossroads whether they're going to allow the Syrian government to regain full territorial integrity and basically eliminate terrorism, or whether the West is going to continue to support the terrorist project there. That's really what's at stake.